If you want to see who someone really is, don't watch what they announce when the light is on. Watch what leaks out when the light is off. Watch the moment the waiter gets the order wrong. Watch the moment they're told no. Character is quiet until pressure calls it forward. And if you learn to notice just two things, how a person treats the powerless and how they handle limits, you will see through almost every mask a human being can wear. Here is our project. For the next half hour together, we'll walk slowly through those two lenses. First, how someone treats the powerless and the absent. People who can't reward them, people who can't retaliate, people who will never know how they were spoken about. Second, how they meet limits, frustration, failure, and boundary. Jung would say the persona, the social mask, likes applause and smooth roads. But the shadow, our disowned impulses, comes out in the alleyways of inequality and the traffic jams of constraint. If you know where to look, those alleyways and traffic jams reveal almost everything. Welcome to Deep Psyche Lab, I'm glad you're here. If you're new, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss our weekly explorations in Jungian psychology. If you find these kinds of deep dives useful, tap like. It helps the channel reach the people who are hungry for this kind of clarity. And throughout, feel free to add your voice. Today's phrase is simple. I choose clear sight. Leave that in the comments if this resonates, and we'll build a thread of shared intention. Let's begin with the first lens, how a person treats the powerless and the absent. In plain English, the powerless are those who stand lower on the ladder in a given moment. Service staff, juniors at work, children, animals, or anyone whose voice carries less leverage. The absent are those who aren't present to defend themselves, the colleague out of the room, the ex-partner not on the call, the family member who has not heard how their name is used. Why does this matter so much? Jung would say that our persona curates itself around meaningful others. We present a face calibrated to whoever has the power to grant us belonging or status. But when the person in front of us appears unable to do anything for or against us, the mask grows loose. The shadow enjoys that looseness. It takes the invitation to practice small dominations. And because the absent cannot push back, the psyche gets to rehearse an unopposed narrative. I am superior. I am safe. I can rewrite the story. Notice the details. In a cafe, a woman orders a drink. The barista fumbles and remakes it with an apology. The woman smiles broadly at you, complaining about how customer service has slipped these days, then turns toward the barista and tightens her face into a different shape. Her mouth grows small, her eyes harden, and her tone becomes precise and cutting. She is performing courtesy for you while rehearsing cruelty toward someone who cannot answer back without risking their job. If you only listen to her words, you might debate whether she was in the right about the order. But if you watch the micro-expressions, the speed of irritation, the relish of correction, you would learn something truer. She treats leverage like a permission slip to be unkind. Now think of the absent person, the one not here to watch what's said. A man laughs with you about a mutual friend who just got promoted. He's lucky, he says. Everyone knows he's more political than competent. You could take the sentence at face value, but ask a deeper question. What does the psyche win by diminishing the absent? In Jungian terms, projection often grows where envy is unadmitted. The ego feels threatened by another's ascent, so it projects inferiority outward to preserve superiority inward. The absent friend becomes a screen receiving the shadow film. He is fake, he must be cheating, he doesn't deserve it. The test isn't whether a criticism is ever legitimate. Of course, it sometimes is. The test is whether the speaker would say precisely the same thing in precisely the same tone to the friend's face with an openness to being corrected. If not, their comment is a ritual of self-protection, not truth-seeking. You could watch an entire relationship through this first lens and know its forecast. When someone tells you who they are in the small economy, when they have the only copy of the receipt, when they alone choose the tip, when they hold the shared story in their hands, believe them. Not because people never change, but because the shadow we do not recognize we will repeat. Jung called it enantiodromia, the tendency of things to turn into their opposite when pushed too far. The overly polite persona flips into hidden contempt, and what looks like sweetness in public becomes bite marks in private. If you want to know how someone might handle intimacy, watch the way they tend to those who can't pay them back. Intimacy is a laboratory of small power differentials. The baby crying at 3 a.m., the partner overwhelmed and underperforming, the day when one of you is sick and the other is tired of caregiving. Power in love is often subtle. It's the power to define the mood of the room. It's the power to grant or withhold praise. It's the power to remember the story in a way that flatters the teller. The person who practices fairness when no one is watching will draw on the same muscle when everyone is tired. This is not a witch hunt for flaws. It is an invitation to pattern recognition. The method is simple and slow. The next week of your life will deliver dozens of moments where you can test it. You will ride in a taxi with a driver who merges badly. You will wait for a response from someone who doesn't owe you one. You will overhear gossip. You will be asked for patience by someone who has less power than you in that moment. Craft a question: what is my attitude toward the powerless and the absent? Then reverse it. What is their attitude toward the powerless and the absent? Don't moralize, observe. Don't amplify, remember. Character is a set of rehearsals. People do what they have practiced doing. They expand toward their rituals. Let's anchor the first lens in Jung's vocabulary. Persona, from the Latin for mask, is the social role that allows us to function. It is necessary and healthy. You want your surgeon to wear the mask of calm competence. You want your pilot to wear the mask of stable command. Persona becomes a problem when the ego confuses mask with identity, when the performance hardens into self. The shadow, in contrast, contains everything the persona refuses to admit. If the mask is, "I am always kind," then the shadow is the aggressive impulse that pops out as sarcasm or contempt. If the mask is "I am selfless," the shadow is the hunger for recognition that spits out as quiet sabotage when unacknowledged. Encounters with the powerless and the absent don't create the shadow. They reveal its training schedule. If someone values sincerity, you will watch them course-correct mid-sentence when they realize they are slipping into flattery. If someone values dominance, you will watch them subtly rank and sort humans, making sure they are on top. There is a beautiful, painful honesty available when you apply this lens to yourself first. What do you do with a waitress who seems new and overwhelmed? Do you spontaneously shrink your demands to give her a chance to learn, or do you inflate your presence to secure your comfort? What do you say about an ex who hurt you? Do you tell the story in a way that guards your dignity without stealing theirs? Or do you borrow cruelty as medicine? Jung said we don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. There is an immediate way to do this. On any day you catch yourself gossiping about someone who is not present, gently ask, "Would I say this in the same words to their face?" and then ask for their version. If not, what am I protecting? Shame will try to shut you up with accusations. Let it pass. You're not on trial. You're in a laboratory. You're learning your own rituals so that you can edit them. Now the second lens, how someone handles limits. Limits are reality's no. They show up as a missed train, an unexpected bill, a boundary you didn't anticipate, a consequence you hope to avoid, or a person who doesn't adore you. Jung saw the ego as necessary but prone to inflation, taking itself as the center of the world. Limits are a natural antidote to inflation. They remind us that we are part of a larger field that does not bend perfectly to preference. This is where character becomes visible. It is easy to be graceful when life hands you a fast lane and a soundtrack. It is harder to be graceful when the lane closes and the music stops. Watch carefully what happens inside and around you when reality refuses your wish. One evening, a man arrives at the airport to discover his flight is canceled. He has an urgent meeting the next morning. You can tell 100 stories from that setup, but here's the real test. Does he shift into problem solving without harming others, or does he export his frustration onto whoever is nearest? The ticket agent did not cause the weather. The phone support person did not design the airline's scheduling system. Yet the inflated ego experiences this limit as a personal insult. It seeks a culprit because that preserves a sense of control. If there is a villain, we can punish them. If there is only reality, we must adjust. The capacity to adjust without humiliation is a reliable sign of maturity. It means the psyche can absorb small deaths without becoming vengeful. Consider boundaries in relationships. A partner says, "I can't talk about this right now. I need an hour." That statement is a limit. How someone meets it is a spiritual X-ray. Do they respect the boundary, breathe, and use the hour well, or do they escalate the demand? The latter is common because fear hates limits. It interprets them as rejection. But a self that has met its own shadow recognizes a boundary as a gift. It prevents the kind of conversation in which people say words they later have to carry like stones. When you watch someone accept a no without retaliation, you are watching a person who has passed the power test. They might not like the boundary, but they can stay related to you through it. They can remain a friend to the relationship even when they are not getting what they want. That is the heart of character. Limits also arise in the form of failure. When we fail, the psyche wants a consoling story. If the story is, "I failed because I am worthless," we collapse into shame. No character revealed because there is no movement. If the story is, "I failed because the world conspires against me," we inflate into blame. No character revealed because there is no ownership. A third path is quieter. "I failed because my method was insufficient for this task. I will learn." That sentence does not massage the ego. It invites growth. Jung might say the self, the deeper organizing principle that wants wholeness, uses failure to redirect identification. You are not your image. You are not your last result. You are the process that can learn. How do these two lenses interact? Powerlessness and limits often arrive together. The powerless person in front of you is also meeting their limits, perhaps their 10th for the day. Your response to them reveals your own. When your partner is late again, you face both an absent person and a boundary. You can punish them in their absence with a story, or you can use the limit to ask for a different rhythm. Notice how hate multiplies when we pretend we are unlimited. We push past our exhaustion, then snap at the child who simply asks for water. We tell ourselves we must be endlessly available, then resent the friend who reaches out. Jung encouraged a conversation with the parts of us that carry impossible ideals. Who told you you must be godlike? Who told you you must never disappoint? If you can be human with yourself, you will be human with others. That's not a moral stance. It's an energetic one. Your nervous system will stop scanning for innocence to preserve and guilt to punish. It will start looking for reality to engage. A confession might be useful here because it models what the work feels like. I used to speak about the absent with more confidence than I had earned. It made me feel discerning. I believed I could read motive like a psychic reads a palm. Sometimes I was right, which was the worst thing, because it reinforced the habit. Over time, I realized my certainty spiked when I felt small, when a friend's success reminded me of my own unachieved hopes. If I could subtly lower them in conversation, I rose with no effort. It took one particular friend to mirror this gently. He said, "You're brilliant at analysis, and also sometimes you use your brilliance like a knife where a bandage would do." That sentence hurt. It also set a new ritual. Before I analyze the absent, I ask myself, am I trying to climb? If so, I try to replace analysis with curiosity. I might still voice my concern, but in a tone that imagines they're my equal, not my opponent. The work is ongoing. What changed is not that I became nice, but that I started to notice my own limits. The limits of my knowledge, the limits of my self-regard, the limits of my energy on a given day. Meeting those limits kindly made me less dangerous to the powerless and the absent. This is what growth looks like under Jung's lamp. The persona relaxes without collapsing, which lets the shadow be seen without being performed. When I feel the prickling heat that precedes contempt, I take it as a signal that a younger complex in me is waking up. A complex is a cluster of charged memories and feelings organized around a theme. Maybe it's the complex of being overlooked at 12 years old. Maybe it's the complex of being powerless in a system that didn't listen. Complexes borrow the present to replay the past. When a waiter forgets your request, your body sometimes hears the teacher forgetting your raised hand. If you know this, you can whisper to yourself, "This is about then more than now," and let the waiter be a waiter again. You can turn down the volume on the shadow's demand for a little revenge. Let's circle through a few concrete vignettes you can carry with you. A founder interviews a candidate and notices how easily the candidate compliments upward and interrupts downward. Upward flattery is a mask. Downward interruption is a tell. The founder passes on the hire, not because the candidate isn't bright, but because he is still rehearsing dominance as security. A teacher meets a parent who wants their child to skip a boundary, late assignments with no penalty. The teacher holds the line calmly and offers support. The parent escalates, calling the policy punitive. The teacher remains steady and kind. The parent's fury reveals a relationship to limits that the child will inherit unless someone models a different one. The teacher doesn't make the parent an enemy. She simply refuses to outsource reality. A couple has argued for 2 days about money. They are exhausted. One says, "I can't do more tonight." The other feels the gravitational pull of panic. If we stop now, we will never fix it. But they breathe and agree to stop, taking notes on commitments to revisit. The next morning, they return clearer. A stranger watching would think nothing special happened, but what was tested was the relationship to limits and to power. They chose to treat the boundary not as a wall, but as a rest stop. That choice accumulates. People do not become capable of big love by winning dramatic battles. They become capable by passing thousands of small tests. Let's add one more angle Jung might appreciate: the role of attention. Your attention is a moral instrument. Where you place it shapes who you become. If you train your attention to notice the moments when people are kind to those who cannot serve them, you train your soul to value a certain kind of strength. If you train it to notice only charisma and performance, you will be seduced by the best mask. Likewise with limits. If your attention only notices how reality inconveniences you, you will be constantly insulted by the world. If your attention learns to see limits as the form of life, the banks of the river that make flow possible, you will start to feel accompanied even when denied. The psyche flowers under good attention. You become what you repeatedly notice. The two-lens practice is simple enough to teach to a teenager and deep enough to spend a lifetime mastering. Step 1. Attend to how someone treats the powerless and the absent. Step 2. Attend to how they handle limits, frustration, failure, and no. If you're looking for a soulmate, these lenses will save you heartache. If you're building a team, they will prevent expensive hires. If you're growing yourself, they will give you immediate material to refine. You don't need to psychoanalyze anyone. You just need to be willing to see. Seeing is costly because it demands responsibility. When you see clearly, you can no longer pretend. But clear sight is also merciful because it replaces paranoia with pattern. The world becomes readable. Before we close, bring someone to mind. Maybe yourself. Imagine the last week as a short film. Where did you have power? How did you use it? Where did you meet a limit? How did you respond? If the answers are mixed, welcome to the human project. Jung never asked us to become perfect. He asked us to become whole, which means bringing the rejected parts into conversation with the accepted ones. If your shadow enjoys superiority, ask it what it's afraid of. If your ego hates limits, ask it what kind of holding it needs in order not to panic. The moment you can speak with your parts rather than from them, you gain a new freedom. You can choose differently before the habit chooses for you. And now, a gift for the rest of your day, something practical to carry into the next encounter. When you walk into a room, scan for the person with least leverage, the newcomer, the staff member, the child, and let your first act be to create ease for them. Ask their name. Thank them specifically. If there is a mistake, correct it without humiliation. This does not make you soft. It makes you powerful in the way that matters, because you are training your nervous system to associate power with protection, not with dominance. Then when a limit arrives, and it will, name it without drama. I wish this were different. It isn't. What can I do with what is? The voice that can say that is the voice people trust with their lives. As we part, remember the two tests because they reach into everything. The powerless and the absent will always cross your path, and limits will always flank your days. If you watch those zones, you'll see more than you ever could by studying resumes or Instagram feeds. Jung put it a different way. What we do not make conscious comes to us as fate. Bring your power and your limits into awareness, and fate becomes collaboration. You and life work together to shape a character sturdy enough to love and to be loved. If this episode helped you see something you needed to see, tap like so the algorithm knows to bring more of this work to more people. Subscribe to the Deep Psyche Lab channel for more deep mind stories and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Write "I choose clear sight" if you're committing to these two lenses, and share one small example from your week where you noticed either the power test or the limit test in action. This channel is educational and not a substitute for therapy. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take good care of your power. Make friends with your limits. I'll see you in the next episode.